to PBA at Noon. My name is Paul Benwell, and I'm joined by my colleague and associate Sophie Caesar. Today, we are very happy to welcome back E2Gold. Since presenting with PBA last September, E2Gold completed an oversubscribed IPO and began trading on the TSX Venture under the symbol ETU. E2Gold is a Canadian gold exploration company. Its large flagship property, the Hawkins Gold Project, covers 7 townships in north-central Ontario, about 140 kilometers east of the Hemlo Gold Mine. The company just announced encouraging drill results at their Hawkins project yesterday, and they still have more results pending. Here to tell us all about it is the president and CEO, Eric Owens, and joining him is Vice President Ellie. Thank you both. Start whenever you're ready, and I'm positive we'll have some questions for you at the end.
Great. Yes. Thank you, Paul and Sophie, for getting us all set up and arranged. We're pleased to be back. Since last fall, we've accomplished a fair bit, as you've noted, and we welcome everybody who's here today to listen to this update. Acknowledging that some people have heard some of this before, we'll try to minimize the overview and just get to the update part of this, but we will provide some background for those of you who haven't heard the story yet. So E2Gold, why would you want to invest in us? Well, hopefully for the same reasons why we invested in E2Gold, and that is for the Hawkins Gold Project, a very large project in north central Ontario, 60 kilometers long, in an emerging jurisdiction where we've seen 26 million new ounces of gold discovered or redefined in the region being brought to production from a number of mines. And you can see between the Sugar Zone, Borden and Cote Lake down here in the southeast, and Island Gold and Magino, we have seen a lot of new developments, and that's kind of exciting a lot of people in the region. Furthermore, we have the potential for size. We think our Hawkins, at least our resource, McKinnon Resource, located in the center of this project, has a lot of similarities to the giant Hemlo Gold Mine situated west of us, as Paul noted, 140 kilometers to the west. We will show you some of those details a little later, but this suggests to us that we have potential for size. Finally, it's ripe for discovery. The deposit itself, the resource itself, the McKinnon resource, is all up at surface down to about 150 meters. Anything below that, we know nothing about. There's been very little drilling down below that depth. So we are in the very early days where we're just scratching the surface on this deposit, and we have a lot of optimism for it. Finally, we've got an active program underway. We've completed one drill program. We're going to be starting on another one in early July, as we can start our summer field season very shortly. So a lot of good things coming out of this project so far, and we'll tell you a lot more about this stuff as we go on here. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, so since the last PBA webinar we've had, as Paul noted, we've completed our IPO, did it in 3 months, so that was very quick. So we started trading at the beginning of January. A month later, we started our drill program, which finished up back in April. And in that program, we drilled about almost 3,000 meters over 17 holes. We've released 2/3 of those results, about 7 holes remaining. Eric is going to go into a little bit more detail on those results, and especially the ones that were released yesterday. But suffice to say, we were very pleased with those results. The theory of the drilling phase was to confirm and firm up our knowledge on the historic Falcon Bridge drilling, and we were able to do that. So we're very happy with that. In lesser known news, because it's not drilling news, but very important for our exploration programs, we completed an airborne magnetic survey over the central 15 kilometers of our property package. It's been very useful for targeting this past phase of drilling and then our future phase of drilling in the summer. We also completed a ground IP geophysics survey in March. That was to confirm and test previous Falcon Bridge IP surveys, and it was to test about 3 different sections, and so we've processed those results and are very pleased with them. So we'll be doing a much broader scale IP survey in the future. We also completed a preliminary petrography and microprobe study. That was to characterize the lithological units, but also for ore characterization. And that's been great to inform us preliminarily that we have free gold and gold included in pyrite. And that's very useful for giving us some confidence that future extraction processes should be routine and non-problematic. And then, as Eric's noted, our field season will be beginning next week. Our crew is set to go out tomorrow. That field season will cover surface mapping, prospecting, trenching, channel sampling, and then, of course, we will start our drill program beginning of July, around beginning of July. And that season should last until October, depending on the weather. So lots of activities on the exploration front to help us target and really think through what we're going to be doing with our next drill program. And then on the marketing side, we've been very active and engaged since going public in January. For only these 4 months, we've attended a number of conferences, a number of webinars, including stuff like PBA. And we've averaged about a webinar a week, an event a week in the past 2.5 months. So we've been very energetic in getting that story out there. So for those of you who are less familiar with the share structure, just briefly, 46.5 million shares outstanding, insiders hold 23%, funds hold 13%. We're very proud of that early engagement by funds, and high net worth individuals hold 19%.
And a brief bit about us. Most of you know us by now if you've heard the story, so I won't get into any of the details here, but suffice it to say that we have a combination of experienced management and exuberant management. So everybody's passionate about what they do, meticulous about their individual roles in this growing early stage company. And we're making use of a lot of veterans in this industry in this very busy time. As you can imagine, everybody's busy these days, and so we're doing very well given our short lifespan with who we've got to help us through all our various activities. So let's move a little bit more to the details of our recent drilling and exploration activities. We'll focus on the recent results, of course. This map shows the map view of the target McKinnon zone. The McKinnon zone is a 6.2 million ton resource, inferred resource, all at surface, from surface down to 150 meters, 1.65 grams per ton average grade, open below that 150 meters and along strike. It's not been tested much below the 150 meters, nor has it been tested along the trend east or west of this. So there's some obviously potential opportunities to discover more gold in both directions. I've drawn red circles in this area around holes for which we've released assays. In the central area of the deposit here, up to 30.9 grams per ton over a half a meter in some of these, and we'll look at that in greater detail. And then to the west in holes 9 and 10, the results that we released yesterday with up to 18.2 grams over a meter in 5 meters, grading 4.9 grams per ton. So these are very encouraging results. As Ellie said, we are confirming the old Falconbridge data, which dates from 4 decades ago. Nobody has really done much work since then on this project. Our goal is to try and see if we can take this 300,000+ ounce deposit here as it's defined now and try to grow it to something like 150, 1.5 million ounces or some such number with room to grow beyond that. And at that point, that's our exit strategy. That's when we will decide to sell the company or sell the project to a major. We believe it's going to take another 12 to 18 months to really get a good handle on whether we have potential to do that. So that's what we're doing right now. And our first step was to focus in and around some of the higher grade Falconbridge holes to be able to, one of the important steps of trying to grow this deposit will be to try and chase some of these higher grade zones down at depth. And that's our real goal here, is to see what we can do at depth here below that 150 meters. So here's a couple of cross sections. On the left cross section are the 2 holes we announced yesterday. On the right is the first grouping of holes from the central part of the deposit here. So this is on the west end of the deposit on the left, and central part of the deposit on the east, or on the right. They are located, these groupings of holes are located 600 meters apart, and we've hit high grade gold in both of these at shallow depths. In the case of the right hand side, below, certainly below 100 meters, and likewise 100 meters depth or less in the most recent assay result, or the most recent holes. So we're very encouraged by these. There's much more work to be done on these projects, and we are very pleased that we've seen such good results in such a short period of time, a string of results.
Yeah, so a lot of the times in our press releases, we emphasize the shallow depth and shallow nature of the results that we've returned so far, and the Falcon Bridge drilling. And the reason being is you can see the core here on the right represents our kind of gold zone mineralogy. It's a quartz sericite schist, pyrite schist. That's very similar to the Hemlo style of mineralization. So what our working theory is that this McKinnon zone looks somewhat similar to Hemlo. And in fact, Don McKinnon staked it originally for its similarities to Hemlo. And so to give you an idea of how much more work there is to do on McKinnon, we've overlain the resource here in purple on top of the Hemlo deposit here. You can see Hemlo goes down to almost 2 kilometers. The McKinnon zone really goes down to about 150 meters. So we've really only scratched the surface on this deposit. And Eric, did you want to add to that?
So it's kind of interesting, the Hemlo connection there, and there are other large gold deposits in Eastern Canada with similar characteristics, mineralogical and geological characteristics. And one of those would be the Ellie deposit up in northern Quebec, and the other would be Bousquet in a slightly different setting along the Cadillac Larder Lake break. So they're not uncommon. They're part of a family of gold deposits which are widespread throughout the world. And it's funny because people who know Hemlo better than me have listened to this story, seen this core, and they get all excited about this. So I think we're really certainly onto something. We have a variety of targets, however, on this project, and they may not all carry the same characteristics. There's a lot of untested areas still to be done.
So to provide a bit of insight onto our targeting methods, as we just discussed, drilling deeper will be an important way to target. But also you can see this is the Airborne Geophysics survey we did, overlain by the McKinnon resource in red here. That resource sits at the intersection, the interface between this low blue magnetic signal, this is a tonalite gneiss, and a moderate magnetic signal on the north. So that interface really follows along nicely to the west, hits one of our historic high-grade prospects over here, to the east, and then follows along nicely to the west over here, and along the way again, hitting these historic high-grade prospects. So that provides us with a pretty good indicator of step-out targeting along strike. So we're very excited to start doing a little bit more of that in our future drill programs.
Yeah, these are all activities that we're building in these early days to help provide for future drill activities. So our next round of drilling, which will start in late June, early July, will be based upon some of the work, some of the previous drilling we've already done, as well as based upon some of the Falcon Bridge drilling, the old 40-year-old drilling. But it will also be based upon some of these high-grade targets that we see there have never been tested, as well as some of the geophysical work that we've been concluding. So we have a very ambitious program going forward. Basically, to wrap this up and then lead to any questions, we anticipate starting our summer field season with geologists and prospectors next week. They'll be out on site. We will have a good month or two of work before we get the drill rig back out there to begin our second phase drilling, which is going to be a 4,000 to 5,000 meter drilling. This last drill program was just shy of 3,000 meters, so it'll even be a bigger program comprised of several different targets. The focus will be, if I back up to this map, the focus will be in this central 15 kilometers with further focus in and around the McKinnon Resource. That's where 90 or 95% of our work will be done. Any work beyond what you see on this map to the east and west, remember, this map is 15 kilometers long. There's still 35 more kilometers of project area out there. Will be much more reconnaissance in nature, sort of airborne geophysical work, as well as just sort of reconnaissance prospecting and geology. So all our work is going to be focused in this area, and that's where most of our news flow is coming to roost for us here. And that's pretty much the story. It's a very active program, and we look forward to any questions you may have.
Thank you both. That was a great presentation, and you guys have been so busy over the last 6 months, so we're really happy to have you back. We do have a question here that asks if it's possible to show us the scale and extent of the alliteration zone at Hemlo. Is that possible, or?
Yeah, oh, wrong way, sorry. This one here. So you can see in yellow the Hemlo, pretty much the mined out portion of Hemlo at this point in time. And the depth is down to almost 2,000 meters. So just shy of 2,000 meters is the bottom of Hemlo, maybe 1,800 meters or so. What we know about our McKinnon zone here is down to about 150 meters. There are a few drill holes below that level in McKinnon, but they're so widely scattered that they're useless from the point of view of gaining much knowledge from them. And you can see just on the overlay as well, where the Hemlo yellow zones intersect and how much non-ore there is in that area. Whereas the largest scale of ore is down below that level.
Yeah. Okay, and we have a question here. What are the deepest holes that you already have or that you drilled?
The deepest hole we drilled was hole number 6. And if I back up to this one way over on the east side of the McKinnon zone itself. And so that would be about almost 400 meters depth. So it would be kind of in this area here of the McKinnon zone here on the east end.
And so there were the 2 closest historic Falcon Bridge holes to that hole. Whoops, let's go back up. That's about 90 meters deeper and 200 meters deeper, respectively, of the closest Falcon Bridge holes. So we definitely consider that a step out hole at depth.
Yeah, and it hit a fairly wide zone of strongly anomalous gold. By no means have we cut off. It was about 0.3 grams per ton over 41 meters. So it was very encouraging for us in these early days to actually hit something that deep to show us that this target structure still exists down there.
Yeah, and those wide zones are really characteristic of the Hemlo style of mineralization. Again, is these very wide zones of, here we have a 17-meter zone of 1.81 gram per ton, which that's actually higher than our current resource estimate grade of 1.65 gram per ton. But then sandwiching these much higher grades here in the center. We've even got, a 30.9 gram per ton grade there. So that's very similar to the Hemlo style. You get these really high grades sandwiched by these lower but very wide zones. So in a lot of ways, we're just as excited about the wide zones as we are about the really high grades that we're getting.
Especially for the shallow levels like this.
So there's a question about the 33.5 gram per ton grab sample located in the geological anomaly. It's right here. Is that a 33.5 grams per ton grab sample located in geological anomaly?
Yeah, that's at a prospect, an old prospect, Colbert de Broy showing out there on the east end. And that was actually a reported number from a previous junior that explored that prospect. That prospect dates from the 1930s. So about 5 years ago, another junior came in and did some work on the project and sampled that and announced that in a press release, actually.
Okay. What is the budget for the season, and is it all covered? I'm assuming Willie means, are you guys gonna have to go back for a raise or not?
Yeah, so we have our wish list is to ramp up activities, make a much bigger program than we originally planned when we completed the IPO and budgeted for the IPO for the year. We would like to see a $3.5 to $4 million program between now and the end of the year. And so to do all of that, we will have to go back to the market and raise more money to do all that.
Yeah. We can continue to do what we originally planned to do, but we've gotten good results back, and our geological wish list has grown as we're all excited about these targets.
Yeah.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah.
So can you please provide some detail on the ownership history of Hawkins? This viewer believes they may have missed it.
Yeah. So we have, as you can see in this inset map here on this figure, there's a long, narrow portion of the project. And then on the west end, there's this big head. So it looks like a scorpion on its side. The head part of it on the west side is our staked claims by us. There's about 500 and some odd claims that we staked in June of last year. So they're actually in my name right now. The intent is to just shift them over to E2Gold shortly, which we're in the process of doing now. The long, narrow portion we optioned from a private company. This is a project I've known about for several years now, and just was busy doing other things. And this opportunity came to acquire it or option it late in 2019. So we did just that and used it to set up E2Gold. Functionally, it is, in its most simplistic sense, it's been owned by Petrography Minerals, that's the private company, for the last 5 or 8 years. Prior to that, it was owned by Canadian Ore Bodies, which is a Don McKinnon company, Don McKinnon Senior Company, and Don McKinnon Junior Company. Don McKinnon Senior came in the 1990s, a decade after Falconbridge drilled, and staked over the McKinnon, what we now call the McKinnon Prospect. It wasn't called the McKinnon Prospect before Don McKinnon came on the scene and staked the ground over the Falconbridge drilling. So there's that history there. So it's been from Falconbridge evolved into the Don McKinnon companies. They didn't do very much work on it. Don McKinnon did not test much of the McKinnon zone itself, nor did he test along strike with the McKinnon zone. He did do a couple of small drill programs elsewhere on the property, but there's been very little work really trying to evaluate what we consider is a very good starter resource and a good way to focus our energies to see if we can take this thing and make it bigger.
Eric, you mentioned, so the property is optioned then?
That is correct. The long, narrow portion of it, we've optioned it. Okay, I'll get into the details of that. We have five years to earn 100%, and we're in year 2 now. And the terms of that option agreement are $200,000 cash per year to the underlying owner, to the private company we're optioning it from, plus $200,000 worth of shares per year over each year of those 5 years, and then $500,000 of work commitments every year for those 5 years. And that'll earn us 100%. And
then will there be any royalties on the property?
There's functionally an underlying royalty of about 2%. Well, not about, exactly 2% over the whole part of the option property. No royalties on the claims we've staked. The McKinnon estate has a slightly more complicated set of royalties on the claims covering the McKinnon resource here. That is a 3.25% royalty, which can be bought down for $750,000 down to 1.5%, but then Paviarc lopped on 0.5% onto that buy down. So functionally, the whole ground, the whole slender 50-kilometer narrow stretch is a 2% royalty. That's what it comes down to.
Okay. We have a question here from Logan. How do the newly acquired claims near Borden fit into the project pipeline for the company? Will any recon work occur this year on those claims?
Yes, we plan on doing some preliminary, first, look-see type work for a couple of weeks this summer on those claims to get a first assessment. They're purely a conceptual ground, based upon airborne magnetics that the government provides. And we thought, well, they're in the Borden region, and they kind of have the magnetic signature that we thought was curious. So they will bear witness to some work this year. Not a lot, unless we, find something really good, juicy looking out there.
And for those of you less familiar with those claims, one is located about here, another set is located about here, and we staked those back in March, I believe, something like that.
Yeah, correct.
So going back to Hawkins, so are you guys fully permitted there?
Yep.
For the central section that we are working on, as Eric said, this central portion is where we're doing 90% of our work. That's where we're doing our drilling work, and we are fully permitted for what we're planning on doing there.
Okay, and are there any indigenous issues?
Not issues, but we have 3 First Nations groups that we're working with, and we've been in pretty constant communication with them. They often are able to provide us with field personnel or various services. So we've certainly been working with them a lot, but no issues so far. I mean, a testament to that is we went through the permitting process in October and November, and it was smooth. There were no delays. Permits came out right on time. We had conversations about where certain areas of values might be, and it didn't impede our drilling program, and we were able to work around any of those concerns.
Oh, phenomenal. So the $1 million question lately is COVID. How's that affected you guys, especially with the lockdown that's going on in Ontario right now?
It actually hasn't really affected us that much at all. We do put in certain measures, like for instance, at our field accommodations, we have dorms where 2 people could stay in, but we're cutting it down so that it's just 1 person per room. We require negative COVID tests before arriving on site. But for the most part, because mining is an essential industry, people are able to travel, and because we're located in a very accessible area, people don't need to take air travel. They can airplanes. They're able to drive from their homes, and we're both Western grads, and a lot of our personnel just seem to be from Western. So everybody's from London, and so they're able to drive up, no problem.
So that brings me to my next question. Yeah. How is the infrastructure? So clearly you're driving up, and the rest of the infrastructure is easily accessible. It works well for everyone.
Yeah, right. So you can see Highway 11 here. This logging road is very well graded all the way down to this little railroad town of Oba. Oba has a number of accommodation options for us, and that is only about 15 minutes away from the property site. So it was really easy for us to pretty quickly set up our field program last year, because there were already, cabins for people to stay in. The property itself has a number of logging roads crisscrossing it. You can see these 2 railroad lines, a CN and an Algoma railroad line crossing the property. So very accessible. It's about an hour and a half drive down from her. So everything's been pretty easy to set up there.
Okay, excellent. And I just have one more question for you before Paul has his questions. Who are the funds that hold your stock now?
Go ahead.
AIS Gold Corp Gold Fund out of Connecticut, Palisades, Rab Capital out of London, and Northern Precious Metals out of Montreal.
Excellent. And Paul, did you have a question or two?
Yeah, leave that screen up there. Can you touch on your 43-101 resource and the drilling that you've just completed? Like, is that already in the resource, or is that still going to be worked?
Yes. So the resource itself has been calculated by P&E Mining, and it's based upon the Falconbridge drilling principally. There was a junior company that came in 2017 and drilled a few holes in the McKinnon zone. Those holes were added into the resource as well. So 6.2 million tons, grading 1.65 grams per ton for about 328,800 ounces of gold. It's all in the upper 150 meters. It props out, it's exposed at surface in trenches, and all the drilling is really in the upper 150 meters. In fact, I'm generous when I'm giving it 150 meters. Mostly it's all the drilling is even shallower than that. So it's really, it's like the outside skin of an onion that we're looking at right now. And there's been no drilling along strike. That's based upon, as I say, Falconbridge drill holes. Now, you say, well, how can we calculate a resource on 40-year-old drill holes? Well, there's 80 drill holes. There's some drill core in storage in the M&E and DM facilities in Sault Ste. Marie, and the P&E mining QP was able to go up there and selectively resample some of that core and get enough samples to statistically compare with the Falconbridge assay data. So it's really based upon Falconbridge assay data, which we are confirming with this first round of drilling. And that's, in my mind, satisfactory in a satisfactory way. But we have done enough statistical sampling that the OSC and the other regulatory bodies, TSX, were satisfied with the calculation of that resource.
All right, perfect. I mean, what's the deepest holes you're going to be drilling in this program?
The upcoming one, we don't want to step down too far. We want to see, because we've got to try and chase the higher grade zones down. So we'll probably gradually do that, go down 50 meters at a whack. So I would expect that we might go down as deep as 300 to 400 meters in some cases. But the initial results, the initial drilling will all be fairly shallow. I would say in the upper 200 meters.
So I mean, I had a question I was going to ask you. Are you a miner or a producer? And you already answered that earlier. You said you like drill it up and then like sell it off or whatever.
Yeah.
But do you think this would be open pit to start with the results that you have?
I think there would be a possibility to be open pit for down to maybe 100 or 150 meters. The zone itself is on average, about 20 meters wide. And I know looking at a similar thing over in Val d'Or in my last endeavor at Alexandria, we were looking at the Oronata zone over there, and that had a similar sort of geometry. And we were thinking of open pit down to 150 or 200 meters. So yes, there's a potential for some open pit type of mineralization here to start for somebody who gets to that point.
All right. So I guess my final question is: all the data that all the previous data you have from Falconbridge is giving you the targets for your new drilling program, basically? Yes,
we've based our initial program here this year on that data, and now that we've drilled some of this stuff, we can actually follow up on that drilling and more confidently start to step down or step out, as the case may be.
And just to touch on that a little bit too, and the idea of these targets going at depth, and we have this resource, it's based on drilling, but again, it's historic drilling. And so a lot of what we're doing in these early days, even though there's some very obvious targeting, stepping out along strike, stepping out at depth, we really need to make sure that we confirm that Falconbridge drilling first in these early days. We don't want to start stepping out too much before we really understand the geometry of what we're working with a bit better.
Yeah. And okay, finally, sorry, Paul, one more thing. Yep. There's also big, as you can imagine, over a 3.5 kilometer strike, 80 drill holes scattered along that 3.5 kilometer strike. There's some big gaps in data that require some testing as well. Fill-in testing.
I guess my question is, like, when are you going to have a new 43101 resource? Like, based on your data, you can use the historic, but can you augment it with the historic and the new drilling, or do you have to present a new resource?
Yeah, I think that some of the infill drilling could affect the existing resource, but certainly when we start stepping out, we're going to be starting to increase the volume. And that's where we'll get into the new resources. And so the short answer to your question about when for a new resource update, it won't be this year, because that's not the goal. We're just trying to see where this is at the moment. It will be likely 2022, sometime in 2022, maybe the middle of the year, maybe the late in the year.
All right, excellent. Eric and Ellie, thank you so much for today. Much appreciated. You guys have really hit the ground running and done a fantastic job up to this point. You got the drills on the ground. You're starting the second program. So kudos to you guys. I like it. You don't have a lot of stock outstanding. You know, like you're going to have drill results or move your stock higher, raise some money at higher prices, and away you go.
Thank you, Paul. And also Sophie for putting this together. It would be great. And thank everybody for listening here today.
Take care, everyone. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.